Okay, so check this out. Here we have the Bobbit Worm completely devouring a bloatfish in seconds. This is Infernum Abyss from the Calamity Mod, with a full-on ecosystem, with predators and prey, extra mini-biomes, new food chain systems, and so much more things that breathe life into the Terraria world. So let's begin with the loot and world generation. The Abyss is broken up of many distinct mini-biomes, which include the lush caves, making up the first layer, filled with kelp, planty marsh, and various weak mobs. Layer 2 being tight ravines with pockets of luminol leading downwards to the third layer, which is scattered with scoria and molten rock. Within this layer, there is also a circular luminol spikes mini biome, which spawn the colossal squid and various other mobs, and the Eldless Island platform, marking the end of the luminol spikes layer, and onto our final layer of the Abyss, being a complete void, which acts like a makeshift arena to challenge the toughest of enemies. In regards to Abyss loot, shadow chests have been completely removed, and instead, items within the Abyss will now have unique methods of obtainment. Quickly going through them, the Herring Staff is now obtained using a bug net on the new Herring critter. Iron Boots can be found on the Skeleton Corpse, which is located somewhere around the first layer of the Abyss. The Lionfish is now another new Abyss mob, which you guessed it, drops the Lionfish rogue weapon. The Strange Orb is now mineable, found somewhere in the first half of the Abyss. And finally, the Terminus is now buried in the deepest layer of the Abyss. However, you will need to defeat this spooky worm first. More on this boss at the end of the video. The rest of the Abyss jobs will now be craftable, which in my opinion is a pretty great quality of life addition. These are such creative ideas which I rarely see in other modded biomes, where loot is primarily obtained from slain mobs or chests. It is also important to mention that you still need to kill Skeletron to access Abyss loot and prevent progression breaks, as items like the Strange Orb become unmineable until post Skeletron. Now shifting towards reworked Abyss mobs and mini bosses, some of which are dominant in the food chain, whereas not all Abyss mobs are hostile towards each other. I'll try my best to go through most of them from layer 1 to 4, beginning with moray eels, which now are kinda like man-eaters and angry trappers, hiding inside the Abyss gravel and lashing out at you. Box jellyfish have a new visual for their lightning. Toxic minnows now spawn in groups and can even damage each other with their own poison. Devil fishes explode. Giant squids seem to be the same, however can come in groups. The gulper eel has a pretty spooky scream and will violently dash at the player and latch on if you get hit. The colossal squid stays asleep until it's disturbed and uses its tentacles to whip you and fires ink bubbles that split into multiple other projectiles. Eldless are now its own proper mini-boss, with new electric attacks, and for every Eldless you kill, they'll be even more buffed than the last one, meaning the last Eldless will have some super strong attacks. The Bobbit Worm will pull you in and suck the life out of you. The regular Eidolon Worm scares off pretty much all other Abyss mobs, being on top of the food chain along with the adult Eidolon Worm, and has a new lightning bolt attack. And the Reaper Shark now only seems to spawn in the final layer of the Abyss, which is pitch black by the way, and being an apex predator, it lurks in the darkness and will swiftly dash at you. It now also summons mini sharks and can breathe abyssal flames. And lastly, let's talk about the adult Eidolon Worm, the protector of the Terminus relic, used to activate boss rush. This boss is now post Yarrow, which can also be summoned using the sea room, and instead of being the dungeon guardian equivalent of the Abyss, it now has some really awesome and interesting AI. This includes his phase 1 performing quick dash attacks whilst firing a barrage of lasers. He also can summon Eidolon worms and has a very familiar circling attack in which spikes converge towards the center. His phase 2 is super aggressive, introducing various forms of telegraph dash attacks, and my favorite phase, in which he transcends into an actual Eldritch god. Gerald's final phase calls upon the Terminus item to assist him, firing a downward laser. Infernum has expanded the Abyss into something that's super unique, thus earning it the title of one of the best biomes in Terraria history.